Atomic Dawn, The Manhattan Project, Cold Open. It is July 16th, 1945. The New Mexico desert is silent, impossibly silent. The stars above are fading as dawn approaches, that false dawn before the sun breaks the horizon. Scientists stand in bunkers 5 miles away. They have not slept in days. Some are praying, some are terrified. One man, Robert Oppenheimer, stands watching the darkness, smoking a cigarette, his hand trembling slightly. He is thinking of Sanskrit, of the Bhagavad Gita, of the moment when the god Krishna reveals his true form to the mortal world. At 5:29 a.m., a countdown reaches 0. The desert ignites, a light so bright it turns night into day, not the gentle warmth of the sun, but a violent, searing brilliance that burns the retinas of men 5 miles away. The sky becomes an inferno of orange and yellow and white. A mushroom cloud rises, 10,000 feet in the first minute, 40,000 feet within seconds. The earth itself trembles. A shockwave races across the desert at supersonic speed. And in that instant, in that blinding, terrible flash, the world changes forever. The age of the atomic bomb has begun. But this moment, this apocalyptic dawn, is not the beginning of the story. It is the culmination. The final act of a secret that consumed 4 years, cost $2 billion, and required 130,000 people to build something so powerful it would end a world war and reshape the entire future of human civilization. It is a story about ambition and terror, genius and guilt, the moment when science abandoned its innocence and became the servant of war. This is the story of the Manhattan Project. Act 1. The World Before. It is December 1938. In Berlin, a German chemist named Otto Hahn performs an experiment that will change everything. He bombards uranium with neutrons. The uranium nucleus splits. It breaks apart. In the rubble of that atomic destruction, Hahn discovers something astonishing. The mass of the products weighs less than the original uranium. Where has the missing mass gone? He does not know, but he writes a letter to his colleague Lise Meitner, a physicist forced to flee Nazi Germany months earlier. She has the answer. The missing mass has been converted into energy. Einstein's equation, E equals mc2, suddenly becomes not a theoretical abstraction, but a laboratory reality. The energy released from splitting a single uranium atom is unimaginably small. But if you could split billions of atoms simultaneously, if you could create a chain reaction where each split atom triggers more splits, the energy released would be catastrophic. It would be the most powerful explosion ever created by human hands. It is January 1939 when the implications become clear. In a laboratory in Stockholm, Meitner and her nephew work through the calculations. The numbers are staggering. A single pound of uranium-235 would release energy equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT. They understand what this means. A bomb. An atomic bomb. The news spreads through the scientific community like wildfire. By the spring of 1939, physicists across Europe and America are grappling with the same terrifying realization: an atomic bomb is possible. And in Nazi Germany, Adolf Hitler controls a nation with some of the world's finest physicists and access to uranium mines in Czechoslovakia. In Budapest, a brilliant Hungarian physicist named Leo Szilard has a nightmare that changes everything. He dreams of an atomic bomb being dropped on London. He wakes in cold sweat. It is not a dream of imagination. It is a premonition of probability. Szilard knows the Nazis are building an atom bomb. He knows because German physicists are already working on it. He knows because he can read the scientific papers published before the war. And he knows because he has friends in Berlin who write to him in secret. Szilard becomes obsessed with a single thought. The Americans must build the bomb first. He reaches out to other physicists. He finds allies in Enrico Fermi, who has just escaped Mussolini's Italy. He finds support in Edward Teller, a Hungarian like himself. But Szilard knows something else. To convince the American government to invest the enormous resources necessary to build an atomic bomb, he needs a name so famous, so universally respected, that no government can ignore it. He needs Albert Einstein. On August 2nd, 1939, Leo Szilard delivers a letter to the summer home where Einstein is staying on Long Island. The letter is written in German, Einstein's native language. It describes the possibility of an atomic bomb. It explains the chain reaction theory, and it issues a stark warning. The Germans are likely already working on such a bomb. If the Nazis develop atomic weapons first, they will win the war and dominate the world. Einstein reads the letter. He is moved. He signs it. The letter goes to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. 3 weeks later, Nazi Germany invades Poland. The Second World War begins. And in Washington, the president reads Einstein's letter. But he does not act with urgency. The scientific establishment remains divided. Many physicists insist that an atomic bomb is decades away, if it is even possible at all. The government is skeptical. The American military has never fought a war that required weapons decades ahead of their time. Why invest billions in theoretical physics? For 2 years, the atomic bomb remains a theoretical possibility, a dream, a nightmare, but nothing concrete, nothing real. Then everything changes. Act 2, The Storm. It is December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor burns. American battleships list and sink. The Pacific Fleet is devastated. The United States awakens to the reality of global war. And suddenly, the atomic bomb is no longer theoretical. It is urgent. It is essential. It is survival. Within weeks, General Leslie Groves is appointed to oversee the secret atomic bomb project. Groves is a military man, granite-faced, decisive, accustomed to building impossible things. He has overseen the construction of the Pentagon. He understands logistics. He understands command. But he does not understand physics. He does not need to. He understands that his job is to create an industrial infrastructure capable of producing something no one has ever produced before. He understands that failure means defeat and occupation. He understands that he has perhaps 3 years to accomplish what conventional scientists say will take decades. The name of the project is mundane by necessity, the Manhattan Project. The name comes from the Army Corps of Engineers Manhattan Engineer District. It is deliberately anonymous. It tells no one what the project does. It is a name designed to hide everything. Groves begins recruiting scientists. He reaches out to J. Robert Oppenheimer, a theoretical physicist from Berkeley who is not yet 40 years old. Oppenheimer is brilliant, perhaps the most brilliant physicist in America, but he has no experience managing large projects. He has no engineering background. He has never commanded anything larger than a classroom. Groves chooses him anyway. Groves sees something in Oppenheimer. He sees a man capable of uniting the most fractious group of people ever assembled. Theoretical physicists, experimental physicists, chemists, engineers, military officers, and industrial managers. He sees a man capable of leading them all toward a single, impossible goal. Oppenheimer accepts the job. He knows what they are building. He knows what it will do. But he also knows that if the Nazis build it first, the world ends under Nazi rule. It is a choice between two horrors. He chooses the lesser horror, or what he believes is the lesser horror. Groves selects the location for the central laboratory, Los Alamos, New Mexico. It is remote. It is isolated. It is a mesa 7,400 feet above the desert floor, surrounded by valleys and mountains that will contain any accident. Oppenheimer and Groves drive out to the site in the fall of 1942. There is nothing there. A few corrals, horses grazing in high desert grass. That is all. Within months, it becomes a city. A secret city that does not appear on any map. Army construction crews build dormitories, laboratories, housing for scientists and their families. Within a year, 3,000 people live there. Within 2 years, 10,000. By the end of the project, 130,000 people across multiple sites in the United States are working on the Manhattan Project. Only a handful know what they are building. The secrecy is absolute. Security officers accompany scientists everywhere. Mail is censored. Phone calls are monitored. Scientists work in compartmentalized teams, each team knowing only what they need to know to do their job. A machinist might spend 2 years fabricating a single component without understanding what that component will do. A chemist might isolate a chemical process without knowing why that element is important. The project is structured like a vast puzzle where no single piece reveals the whole image. At Oak Ridge, Tennessee, another secret city rises. Here, the critical work begins, the enrichment of uranium. Natural uranium contains only 0.7% of uranium-235, the isotope capable of sustaining a chain reaction. The rest is uranium-238, which absorbs neutrons and prevents the chain reaction from occurring. To build a bomb, the physicists must separate uranium-235 from uranium-238. It is a separation process that has never been done at industrial scale. No one knows if it is even possible. 3 methods are attempted. Electromagnetic separation uses giant magnets to separate the isotopes by weight, like a vast particle accelerator. Gaseous diffusion passes uranium hexafluoride gas through porous barriers, hoping the lighter uranium-35 molecules will permeate faster. Thermal diffusion relies on temperature differences to separate the isotopes. All 3 methods are pursued simultaneously. All 3 are expensive. All 3 consume enormous amounts of electricity. Oak Ridge requires so much power that it becomes the 4th largest consumer of electricity in the United States. The city simply appears on Tennessee power grids, drawing megawatts, with no explanation. In Hanford, Washington, another secret city. Here, plutonium is bred in nuclear reactors. Plutonium is an element that does not occur naturally on Earth. It can only be created artificially by bombarding uranium-238 with neutrons in a nuclear reactor. Enrico Fermi, who has escaped Italy and joined the Manhattan Project, oversees the construction of these massive reactors. On December 2, 1942, in a squash court beneath the University of Chicago's football stadium, Fermi initiates the world's first artificial nuclear chain reaction. It is sustained for only a few minutes, but it proves the theory. It proves that plutonium can be created in large quantities. At Los Alamos, Oppenheimer assembles the finest minds in physics. Richard Feynman, a young physicist with an almost supernatural ability to solve impossible problems. Edward Teller, who dreams of even more destructive weapons. Luis Alvarez, who will invent new measurement techniques. Klaus Fuchs, a brilliant German-born physicist who will later be revealed as a Soviet spy. Niels Bohr, the great Danish physicist who has escaped Nazi occupation. John von Neumann, the mathematician who understands computation. Oppenheimer creates a culture of collaboration. In the evenings, physicists gather and debate theory. Disagreements are encouraged. Oppenheimer believes that the greatest minds must be allowed to argue freely, that intellectual friction produces breakthrough. It is an environment of intense pressure and incredible brilliance. Young scientists work 18-hour days. Wives give birth in Los Alamos. Children are born into secrecy. They grow up not knowing what their parents do. They attend school in a town that does not officially exist. By 1944, the uranium enrichment plants are producing quantities of uranium-235. The plutonium reactors are producing plutonium-239. The theoretical work has been completed. Oppenheimer's teams have calculated the critical mass, the amount of fissile material needed to sustain a chain reaction. For uranium-235, it is about 50 kilograms. For plutonium, it's about 10 kilograms. These are workable amounts. The bomb is becoming real, but no one has ever tested a nuclear weapon. No one knows what will actually happen when 2 subcritical masses of fissile material are brought together suddenly. Will the chain reaction proceed as theory predicts? Will the explosion be smaller, larger? What will be the radius of destruction? What will be the thermal radiation? What will happen to the atmosphere? Oppenheimer insists on a test. Groves resists. A test means revealing the project's existence. A test means risk. A test is not necessary, the theory is sound. But Oppenheimer prevails. A test will be conducted. It will be called Trinity. The location is selected, the Alamogordo bombing range, a remote section of New Mexico desert, 210 miles south of Los Alamos. The date is set, July 16, 1945. A tower is constructed, 100 feet high. The bomb, a plutonium implosion device that has never been tested, is hoisted to the top. As the date approaches, Oppenheimer's anxiety increases. He smokes constantly. He loses weight. He has prophetic dreams. He reads more Sanskrit. He attends a meeting where physicists discuss the possibility that the atmospheric nitrogen could ignite in a thermonuclear reaction. They calculate the probability. It is vanishingly small, but it is not zero. There is a 1 in a million chance that the atomic bomb will ignite the atmosphere and destroy all life on Earth. Oppenheimer learns of this conversation. He has the calculations reviewed. The probability is indeed vanishingly small, but it is not zero. He orders the test to proceed anyway. On July 15, 1945, the bomb is fitted with detonators and hoisted to the top of the tower. Scientists gather at observation posts. Some are excited, some are terrified. Oppenheimer is both. The countdown begins at 5 a.m. on July 16th. The desert is dark. Clouds obscure the stars. The air is cold. Scientists have been given dark glasses to protect their eyes. They have been positioned 5 miles from the blast site. Some have lain down on the ground, hoping the desert will shield them from thermal radiation. At 5:29 a.m., the switch closes. The desert burns. The light is not like the sun. It is something else entirely. A light so bright it sears through closed eyelids. Scientists 5 miles away have their breath stolen by the shockwave. The sound comes later, a deep, rumbling roar that echoes off the mountains and reverberates across the desert. The mushroom cloud rises faster than bullets fall. It is growing, expanding, reaching toward space. For several seconds, no one speaks. They are witnessing something that has never existed before in human history. They are witnessing the power of atomic fission released all at once. Then someone speaks, then another, then cheers. Scientists embrace each other. Tears flow, some laugh, some weep, some simply stand in shock. Oppenheimer does not cheer. He stands quietly, watching the mushroom cloud. Later he will say that in that moment, a passage from the Bhagavad Gita came to him. If the radiance of 1,000 suns were to burst into the sky, that would be like the splendor of the Mighty One. He will also say with terrible clarity, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The Trinity test succeeds beyond all expectations. The explosive yield is estimated at 22 kilotons, equivalent to 22,000 tons of TNT. The blast radius extends for a mile. Everything within that circle is destroyed. Sand fuses into glass. The desert itself is transformed. A new element is created on the Earth's surface, trinitite, a radioactive glass formed by the heat of the explosion. The news reaches Washington within hours. President Truman has just arrived at the Potsdam Conference, a summit meeting with Churchill and Stalin to discuss the end of the war. The message is simple. The bomb is ready. Act 3, The Reckoning. It is August 6, 1945. A Boeing B-29 Superfortress bomber named Enola Gay lifts off from an airfield in the Pacific island of Tinian. On board is a nuclear weapon containing enriched uranium-235. The bomb is named Little Boy. It has not been tested. No one knows precisely what yield it will produce. No one truly knows what will happen when it detonates over a city. At 8:15 a.m., Little Boy detonates 1,900 feet above the city of Hiroshima. The blast pressure is so intense it flattens buildings for 2 miles. The heat is so severe it ignites fires for 3 miles. The radiation is so powerful it burns shadows into stone. The silhouettes of human beings vaporized instantly, their outlines left behind on pavement like dark photographic negatives. In an instant, 70,000 people are killed. Most are civilians, most are women and children. 3 days later, another bomb. A plutonium implosion device is dropped on Nagasaki. Fat Man, it is called. The explosion is more powerful than Little Boy, but topography saves the city from complete annihilation. Only 40,000 people die instantly. Tens of thousands more will die from radiation sickness in the following days and weeks. Japan surrenders. The war is over. The atomic age has begun in fire and death. 2 cities erased. Hundreds of thousands dead or dying from wounds and radiation. A new weapon has been introduced to human warfare. A weapon so terrible that it makes all previous wars seem like prologue to apocalypse. Oppenheimer watches the news. He is in the office at Los Alamos when the word comes. The bomb has been used. 2 cities destroyed. The Japanese are surrendering. The war is ending. Scientists celebrate. Some cry. Some simply sit in silence. Oppenheimer does not celebrate. He has built the thing that ended the war. But he understands now, with a clarity that will haunt him for the rest of his life, what his creation is. It is not a tool. It is not a weapon like other weapons. It is an instrument of apocalypse. It is the mechanism by which human civilization can choose to destroy itself. He makes a statement to the assembled scientists. "We have awakened a monster," he says. Or perhaps he simply thinks it. The precise words are disputed, but the sentiment is not. The atomic bomb has changed something fundamental about human civilization. It has introduced the possibility of extinction, not the extinction of a nation or a people, but the extinction of the species itself. The Manhattan Project enters history books as a triumph of American science and industry, as a demonstration of American scientific superiority over Nazi Germany. as the weapon that ended the Pacific War and saved millions of American lives that would have been lost in a conventional invasion of Japan. All of these things are true. But there is a darker truth that begins to reveal itself in the days and weeks after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The bomb was built because scientists feared the Nazis would build it first. But the Nazis never even came close. German physicists, particularly Werner Heisenberg, had concluded that the atomic bomb was a theoretical possibility, but would require industrial resources beyond what even Nazi Germany could sustain. The fear that had driven the Manhattan Project, the terror that Hitler might possess atomic weapons, was based on a misunderstanding. The Nazis were never going to build the bomb, but the Americans did not know this when they built it. They made their decision based on fear. They made their decision based on intelligence that suggested the Germans were closer to the bomb than they actually were. They made their decision because a Hungarian physicist named Leo Szilard was so afraid of Nazi atomic weapons that he convinced Einstein to write a letter to the president. And that letter set everything in motion. Now the bomb exists. 2 cities are gone. Hiroshima and Nagasaki are not cities anymore. They are places where human habitation has been rendered impossible. They are places of smoke and ash and contaminated ground. They are warnings. In the years that follow, the implications ripple outward in concentric circles. The Soviet Union, which was not informed of the bomb project despite being an American ally, feels betrayed. Stalin does not forget this secret. He orders his own scientists to build an atomic bomb. Klaus Fuchs, the brilliant physicist at Los Alamos, is revealed to be a Soviet spy. He has been passing atomic secrets to Moscow throughout the war. The Soviet Union explodes its first atomic bomb in 1949, far sooner than American experts expected, accelerated by the intelligence Fuchs provided. The atomic age becomes the Cold War. 2 superpowers, each with the power to destroy human civilization. The balance of terror, mutually assured destruction. The doctrine that assumes that if nuclear war occurs, both sides will be annihilated. It is a peace maintained by the terror of extinction. Oppenheimer becomes a prophet. He testifies before Congress about the dangers of atomic weapons. He argues for international control of nuclear technology. He argues for the abolition of nuclear weapons. But his warnings are not heeded. The atomic genie cannot be put back in the bottle. The secret is out. Within a decade, Britain has the bomb. Within 2 decades, France has the bomb. By the end of the century, multiple nations possess nuclear weapons. Oppenheimer himself is purged from power. In 1954, his security clearance is revoked. He is interrogated for days. His past associations are scrutinized. His moral opposition to atomic weapons is questioned. By the end of his life, the man who led the Manhattan Project has become a pariah in American scientific circles. In his final years, Oppenheimer gives a lecture at MIT. He stands before an audience of students and faculty and says something that will define how history understands the Manhattan Project. We physicists have known sin, and we know it now. The sin was not in building the bomb. The sin was in believing that they were building it to prevent Nazi atomic weapons that were never coming. The sin was in creating an instrument of apocalypse, and then discovering that this instrument could not be destroyed. Once made, the bomb could only be reproduced. Once the secret was known, it could only be shared. Once the technology existed, it could only spread. Epilogue. 80 years later, we live in the shadow cast by the Trinity test. The mushroom cloud that rose over the New Mexico desert in 1945 has never fully dispersed. It casts a shadow across every subsequent conflict. It informs every strategic calculation. It shapes how the great powers interact with one another. The fear that has defined the Cold War and beyond is a direct descendant of the fear that drove the Manhattan Project. At Los Alamos, the laboratory still operates. Scientists still work on nuclear weapons. The place that was secret is now partially open. Tourists can visit parts of the facility. They can see the building where Fermi initiated the chain reaction. They can learn about the scientists who built the bomb. They can understand, perhaps, the moral complexity of the men and women who chose to develop the most destructive weapon ever created. At Trinity, the testing ground is still there. The original tower is gone, but a stone marker indicates the spot where the first bomb was tested. The Trinitite, That radioactive glass fused from sand by the heat of the explosion still covers the ground. It is still mildly radioactive. It is still there, 80 years later, a permanent reminder of what happened in the desert on a July morning in 1945. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the cities have been rebuilt. Survivors have testified to the horror. Photographs show the devastation. Museums document the human cost. The atomic bombs killed instantly. But death did not end on August 6th and August 9th. Radiation sickness killed thousands more in the following weeks and months. Leukemia cases appeared in survivors for decades. Genetic mutations appeared in the children of survivors. The bomb's effects echoed forward through time. The Manhattan Project was a triumph of human ingenuity and organizational capability. It proved that science and industry working together could accomplish the impossible. It proved that American engineers and scientists could achieve what seemed theoretically unworkable. It proved that in wartime, vast resources could be mobilized to create weapons that changed the course of history. But it also proved something else. It proved that scientific advancement is morally neutral. The same physics that could be used to create energy could be used to create bombs. The same brilliance that could split atoms could be used to destroy cities. Knowledge, in the hands of nation-states, becomes power. And power, particularly unlimited power, corrupts in ways we are still struggling to comprehend. The scientists of the Manhattan Project faced a choice. They could refuse to build the bomb. They could have said no. But refusing meant risking that Nazi Germany would build it first. So they said yes. And in saying yes, they changed the world forever. Today, we live with that choice. We live in a world where nuclear weapons exist, where 9 nations possess them, where the possibility of nuclear war remains a constant shadow, where every generation must confront the reality that human civilization can be destroyed, and fairly quickly, if political leaders choose to exchange nuclear weapons. Oppenheimer, near the end of his life, was asked if he would do anything differently. He said no. He said that building the bomb was necessary to prevent the Nazis from doing so. He said that the scientists involved were unaware of the full consequences of their work. But he also said something else. He said that scientists should have a voice in the political decisions that come from their discoveries. He said that the hubris of physicists, the belief that we understood atomic forces and could control them, had been humbled by the reality of what the bomb actually was. The Manhattan Project remains the defining example of science's power to reshape the world. It remains the moment when theoretical physics became practical, when laboratories became factories, when peacetime scientific inquiry became weapons development. It remains the moment when humanity gained the power to destroy itself and discovered that this power could never be unmade. The mushroom cloud that rose over the New Mexico desert in 1945 has cast a shadow for 80 years. It will cast a shadow for 80 more, until the day when humanity finds a way to live with this knowledge, the knowledge that we can destroy ourselves. That shadow will remain. The secret that ended the war became the secret that defined the peace. And it remains, even now, the most powerful testimony to what science can do when harnessed by war, and the most powerful warning of what human civilization is capable of creating, and most frighteningly, capable of becoming.